You know what's worse than being mocked by strangers? Having your sister-in-law tell a room full of people that your husband should dump you because you can't give him children. And the worst part? Everyone laughed. Including my husband. But that was just the beginning of what she had planned for me. I am Jenny, I'm 31 years old, and this is my story. I met my husband Jake 3 years ago through mutual friends. We clicked instantly, same sense of humor, same values, same dreams about building a life together. When he proposed 18 months later, I thought I was getting not just a husband, but a whole new family. There was one thing I knew about Jake from the beginning: he had a young daughter named Maya from a previous relationship with a woman named Juliet. Jake had primary custody with Juliet having weekend visitation, and Maya was the light of his life. When I met her, I fell in love with her just as hard as I'd fallen for Jake. She was this amazing little girl with Jake's eyes and the biggest smile. Maya started calling me Mama Jenny within a few months, and I loved being her stepmom. I'd braid her hair for school, read her bedtime stories, help her with homework. She felt like my daughter in every way that mattered. Jake's sister Michelle seemed welcoming at first. She was 3 years older than me, married to David with 2 kids, and I genuinely thought we'd become close. She'd invite me to girls' nights, ask about my job, seem interested in getting to know me. I was an only child, so having a sister felt like a gift. But looking back now, I realized she was studying me. Learning my weaknesses. Finding ammunition. The first red flag should have been how she talked about Juliet, Maya's biological mother. Michelle would bring her up constantly in our early conversations. Juliet was so good with Maya, she'd say casually while we watched Maya play. She had such natural maternal instincts. Or Juliet and Jake were such a good team when it came to parenting. She understood exactly what Maya needed. When I'd mention something about Maya's care or a decision Jake and I made together, Michelle would say things like, "Well, Juliet always handled it differently." She really knew Maya's needs. At the time, I thought she was just trying to help me understand Maya better. I didn't realize she was already comparing me to Juliet and finding me lacking. But the comments that hurt the most were about my place in the family. "You know, you're not really Maya's family until you have children of your own," Michelle told me one day when I mentioned wanting to adopt Maya officially. A stepmother can never really understand what it means to be a real mother. "Maya calls me Mama Jenny," I said, confused. "She considers me her mom." "That's sweet, honey, but it's not the same thing. You'll understand when you have your own biological children. There's a bond that you just can't replicate." Michelle's favorite weapon was constantly reminding me that I wasn't really family yet. "Once you give Jake a child, then you'll truly be part of this family," she'd say. "Until then, you're still adjusting." She'd say this in front of other family members, making me feel like I was some kind of trial member who hadn't earned my place yet. "Family is about blood and babies, Jenny. That's just how it works." When Jake and I would make decisions about Maya, like enrolling her in dance classes or planning her birthday party, Michelle would question my involvement. "Shouldn't Juliet be consulted about this? She is Maya's real mother." "Jenny, honey, I know you mean well, but you don't really understand what Maya needs until you've been through pregnancy and childbirth yourself. Maybe we should ask Juliet what she thinks. She's more of a family member than, well, you know." These comments always came with a sweet smile, like she was being helpful rather than cruel. What made Michelle's behavior even more insidious was how she constantly invited Juliet to family events and praised her in front of everyone. "Juliet is coming to Sunday dinner," Michelle would announce. "It's so important for Maya to see her whole family together." When I'd point out that I was Maya's family too, Michelle would pat my hand condescendingly. "Of course you are, sweetie. But Juliet is Maya's real mother. There's a difference." Juliet, to her credit, was always polite to me. She and Jake had an amicable co-parenting relationship, and she never tried to undermine my role in Maya's life. But Michelle would use Juliet's presence to constantly highlight what I wasn't. "Look how natural Juliet is with Maya. That's the bond between a real mother and child. Juliet always knows exactly what Maya needs. It's that maternal instinct you only get from carrying and birthing a child." If only Jake had married Juliet instead. They'd probably have 3 kids by now. The worst part was how Michelle would say these things right in front of Jake, Maya, and me, like it was perfectly normal to suggest that Jake should have married someone else. Jake would always respond the same way, "Michelle, come on. Don't say stuff like that." But he never told her to stop. He never defended our family or stood up for my role as Maya's stepmother. He just brushed it off with "that's just how Michelle is." The first real sign something was wrong came about 8 months after Jake and I got married. We were trying to get pregnant, and I was so excited when I finally saw those 2 pink lines. We told his family immediately because we were just bursting with joy. Michelle's reaction was strange. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She said congratulations, but something in her tone felt off. Then she said something that should have been my first red flag, "Well, let's hope this one sticks." But it was what she said next that really bothered me. "Finally, you'll be able to understand what real motherhood is like." Poor Maya must be so confused having a stepmother who doesn't really know what it means to be a mom. At 8 weeks, I miscarried. I was devastated. Jake was supportive, but he deals with grief differently than I do. He wanted to move forward quickly, try again right away. I needed time to process, to heal emotionally. That's when Michelle started her comments. "Maybe your body is trying to tell you something. Some women just aren't meant to be mothers. At least Maya has Juliet as her real mother. She won't be affected by your situation." But she also started pushing the idea that I wasn't equipped to care for Maya. "Jenny, honey, maybe you should step back from some of the parenting duties until you're in a better emotional place. Maya needs stability right now. I think Juliet should spend more time with Maya while Jenny is dealing with her loss. Children can sense when adults are struggling. Jake, maybe Maya should stay with Juliet for a few extra days each week. Jenny needs to focus on healing, and Maya needs to be around someone who understands motherhood." Each comment was delivered with a sweet smile and followed by "I'm just worried about Maya." Jake would brush it off. "That's just how Michelle is. She speaks her mind." But I could see what she was doing. After the first miscarriage, Michelle's behavior became more calculated. She started inviting Jake and Maya to family events and conveniently forgetting to invite me. "Oh, I thought Jake would have told you," she'd say when I'd ask why I wasn't included. It was just a small thing. Very last minute. Plus, Maya was asking for some time with just her dad's side of the family. But then I'd see the photos on social media showing a full family gathering with extended relatives and Juliet. Michelle had invited Maya's biological mother but not me. When Jake would get home from these events, he'd be distant. Michelle had a way of filling his head with stories about how natural and comfortable these family gatherings felt with Juliet there. "Michelle said everyone was asking about you," Jake would tell me. But honestly, it was nice to see Maya so comfortable with both sides of her family. Both sides? What about my side? You know what I mean, Jenny. Her biological family. That comment stung. When had I stopped being Maya's family? Michelle also started what I call the concerned family member routine. She'd show up at our house unannounced to check on Maya and make sure she was adjusting well to my emotional state. "I just want to make sure Maya feels secure," she'd tell Jake. Children need stability, especially when there are complications in the household. She'd observe how I interacted with Maya and then offer helpful suggestions. "Maya seems a little withdrawn. Maybe she needs more time with Juliet right now." I noticed Maya didn't eat much dinner. Juliet always knew exactly what to cook for her. Maya mentioned that you seemed sad a lot. Maybe she should stay with Juliet on weekends until you're feeling better. Jake was incredibly supportive of me in every other way. When I was struggling with work stress, he'd bring me tea and rub my shoulders. When I was sick, he'd take care of me without complaint. When I was sad about the miscarriages, he'd hold me while I cried. But when it came to Michelle's behavior, he had a massive blind spot. "She doesn't mean anything by it, Jenny. She's just protective of Maya." Michelle's always been blunt. That's just her personality. She'll come around once she gets to know you better. No matter how many examples I gave him of Michelle's cruel comments, Jake would minimize them or make excuses. You're reading too much into it. Michelle loves you. She's not trying to hurt you. She just speaks her mind. Family is complicated. Michelle needs time to adjust to our situation. Jake genuinely couldn't see that Michelle's behavior was deliberate and calculated. In his mind, she was just being honest or concerned or protective. When I'd tell him how much Michelle's comments hurt, he'd be sympathetic but wouldn't take action. I'm sorry she upset you. I'll talk to her. But his talks with Michelle never resulted in any change in her behavior. If anything, they seemed to make her more subtle and strategic in her attacks. We tried again 6 months later. This time I made it to 12 weeks before losing the baby. The doctor said it was just bad luck, that there was nothing wrong with me, that we should keep trying. But Michelle had a different theory. Maybe you're too stressed about it. I read that career women have more miscarriages because they're not focused on what really matters. When I was trying to get pregnant with my second, I quit my job and just focused on being a wife and future mother. Jake needs a woman who can give him more children. Maya needs siblings. But this time, she was more strategic about her cruelty. She'd wait until I was already emotional, already vulnerable, and then deliver her poison with perfect timing. The day I came home from the doctor after confirming the second miscarriage, Michelle was at our house waiting for me with Maya. I picked Maya up from school, she said. I thought she should spend some time with Juliet today. You know, to be around someone who really understands what children need. Maya looked confused. But Mama Jenny, I want to stay with you. Michelle knelt down to Maya's level. Sweetie, Mama Jenny is going through some grown-up stuff right now. Wouldn't you like to spend time with your real mommy? The way she emphasized real mommy while looking directly at me was devastating. Jake walked in as Michelle was loading Maya into her car to take her to Juliet's. What's going on? He asked. Michelle thought Maya should spend time with Juliet today, I said through tears. Jake looked uncomfortable. Maybe that's not necessary today, Michelle. Jake, honey, Jenny needs space to process her loss. Maya needs to be around stability right now. That night, Jake was distant again. I could see Michelle's words had affected him. Maybe Michelle has a point, he said carefully. Maybe Maya should spend more time with Juliet while we're dealing with this. Dealing with what, Jake? Dealing with grief? With loss? Maya is my daughter too. I know, but Juliet is her biological mother. Maybe Maya needs that connection right now. I felt like Michelle was slowly erasing me from my own family. After the second miscarriage, Michelle's campaign to replace me with Juliet became more aggressive. She started planning family activities that included Juliet but excluded me. We're taking Maya to the zoo this weekend, she'd tell Jake. Juliet's coming too. It'll be nice for Maya to have both her real parents there. Both her real parents? You know what I mean, Jake. Her biological parents. The people who created her. When I'd express hurt about being excluded, Michelle would act like I was being unreasonable. Jenny, honey, you're not in the right emotional state for a fun family outing. Maya needs to see her parents happy and stable together. Juliet and Jake aren't together, I'd point out. But they're Maya's real family. That's different. Michelle also started inviting Juliet to every family gathering, always with some excuse about why it was important for Maya. Maya needs to see her whole family together for Christmas. Juliet should be at Maya's birthday party. She's Maya's mother. Easter is about family, and Juliet is Maya's real family. At these gatherings, Michelle would seat Juliet next to Jake and me somewhere else. She'd encourage Juliet and Jake to make decisions about Maya together, often asking for their input on parenting choices without including me in the conversation. Jake, Juliet, what do you think about Maya starting soccer? You two know her best. Juliet, you and Jake should decide about Maya's summer camp. You're her parents. I'd sit there feeling like a stranger at my own family gatherings, watching my husband and his ex-girlfriend be treated as Maya's real parents while I was relegated to the role of observer. Then came the family gathering that changed everything. It was Jake's mom's birthday, and the whole extended family was there, aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone. I was still raw from the second miscarriage, which had happened just 2 months before. I wasn't ready to face questions about when we'd have kids, but Jake insisted we go. We can't hide forever, Jenny. Family is important. Of course, Juliet was there too. Michelle had invited her for Maya's sake, and she was sitting at the main family table while I was seated with the kids at a separate table. Everything was fine at first. I helped in the kitchen, made small talk with the relatives, tried to avoid the topic of babies even though it seemed like every conversation somehow circled back to kids and grandkids and when Jake and I would contribute to the family legacy. But I noticed Michelle watching me throughout the day. Every time someone asked about children, every time I deflected or changed the subject, she was observing my reactions. Then, after dinner, we're all sitting in the living room. Jake's cousin just announced her pregnancy, and everyone's congratulating her, talking about baby names and nursery themes. I'm sitting there smiling and nodding, dying inside but trying to be supportive. That's when Michelle decided to drop her bomb. Well, she said loudly enough for everyone to hear, at least some of us can give our husbands what they want. She looked directly at me. I mean, Jenny, honey, you've been married what, almost 2 years now? Maybe it's time to face reality. The room got quiet. I felt every eye on me. Jake's aunt tried to change the subject, but Michelle wasn't done. I'm just saying, if I were Jake, I'd be looking at my options. A man needs a woman who can fulfill her basic duties as a wife. And honestly? She laughed, this cruel little laugh that I can still hear in my nightmares. I don't think anyone here would be surprised if Jake found someone who could actually give him children. Then she looked directly at Juliet. I mean, look at Juliet. She gave Jake a beautiful daughter. She proved she could be a real mother. She's already more of a family member than some people who just married into it. The silence was deafening. Then, one by one, people started uncomfortable chuckling. Like they thought it was an awkward joke. Jake laughed too, this nervous laugh that felt awful. I looked at him, waiting for him to defend me. To say something. Anything. Instead, he said, Michelle, come on. That's it. Come on. Not don't talk to my wife like that. Not that's completely inappropriate. Just come on, like she was being mildly annoying instead of publicly humiliating me. I excused myself to the bathroom and cried for 10 minutes. When I came back out, the conversation had moved on like nothing happened. But I caught Michelle watching me with this satisfied smile on her face. Maya came up to me and took my hand. Are you okay, Mama Jenny? I'm fine, sweetie, I lied, squeezing her hand. I love you, Mama Jenny. You're my real mama too. Out of the mouths of babes. A 6-year-old understood what the adults refused to acknowledge. On the drive home, I told Jake how hurt I was. How inappropriate his sister had been. How humiliated I felt. You're being too sensitive, he said. Michelle was just joking around. You know how she is. Joking around? Jake, she basically said you should leave me because I can't have children. And she said Juliet is more family than I am. She didn't say that. She said exactly that. In front of your entire family. Look, I know Michelle can be a little direct. But she cares about us. She wants us to be happy. She wants you to be happy. Without me. That's not true, Jenny. You're reading too much into it. But I wasn't. Because what happened next proved that Michelle's comment wasn't a joke. It was a declaration of war. Over the next few months, Michelle's behavior escalated. It was like she tested the waters at the family gathering and realized she could get away with more. She started accidentally sending Jake articles about blended families and step-parenting challenges. She'd forward him stories about men who'd remarried their children's mothers for the sake of family unity. I just thought this was interesting, she'd say when Jake would mention these articles. It's about putting children first. She began planning activities for Jake, Maya, and Juliet that specifically excluded me. It's important for Maya to have time with both her biological parents, she'd explain. She needs to see that her real family is stable and loving. When Jake would mention these plans to me, I'd point out how hurtful it was to be excluded from my own family activities. Maybe Michelle's right, Jake would say. Maybe Maya does need some time with just Juliet and me. We are her biological parents. And what am I, Jake? You're her stepmother. That's important too. But it's different. Michelle was successfully convincing Jake that my role in Maya's life was secondary to Juliet's, even though I was the one living with Maya every day, caring for her, loving her. But the final straw came when I found out Michelle had been telling people in their social circle that Jake and I were having serious marriage problems. That he was reconsidering our relationship. That he was thinking about getting back together with Juliet for Maya's sake. I only found out because Jake's friend Mark's wife, Lisa, pulled me aside at a barbecue. Jenny, I hope you don't mind me asking, but are you and Jake okay? Michelle's been saying some concerning things. My stomach dropped. What kind of things? She said Jake's been talking about how much simpler life was when he was with Juliet. That you've been struggling with the stepmother role and it's causing problems. That he's wondering if Maya would be better off if her biological parents were together. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Jake never said any of those things to Michelle. Lisa looked uncomfortable. She seemed pretty sure about it. She said Jake asked her not to say anything, but she was worried about Maya's well-being. That night, I confronted Jake. He denied ever having those conversations with Michelle. But when I suggested we call her together and ask her about it, he got defensive. Why would you want to start drama? If Michelle misunderstood something I said, I'll clarify it with her privately. This isn't about misunderstanding, Jake. She's actively spreading lies about our marriage and suggesting you should get back together with Juliet. That's ridiculous. I would never get back together with Juliet. Then why won't you tell Michelle to stop suggesting it? Jake was quiet for a long moment. Because maybe she has a point about Maya needing stability. I realized then that Michelle was winning. But something inside me snapped. I couldn't let her destroy my family without a fight. Over the next few weeks, I started documenting everything, every cruel comment, every exclusion, every lie Michelle spread. I also started building relationships with other family members who weren't under Michelle's influence. It was Jake's grandmother who finally opened his eyes. She pulled him aside after another family gathering where Michelle had been particularly cruel to me. Jake, honey, she said, I've been watching how Michelle treats Jenny, and it's not right. That girl loves you and Maya with everything she has. Michelle's trying to destroy something beautiful, and I don't understand why. When Jake came home and told me about that conversation, I saw something shift in his eyes. For the first time, he was really seeing what Michelle had been doing. The final breaking point came when Michelle organized a family reunion and invited Juliet as Maya's real family while somehow forgetting to invite me. I only found out about it when Maya came home talking about the fun day she'd had with all my family. Daddy and Mommy Juliet were there, and Aunt Michelle, and all my cousins, Maya said excitedly. It was like when I was little and everyone was together. Jake looked guilty when he got home. Michelle organized it last minute, he said. She said it was just for Maya's biological family. I am Maya's family too, Jake. I know, but maybe Michelle's right. Maybe Maya needs to see her biological parents together sometimes. Together? Jake, what are you saying? I'm saying maybe we should consider what's best for Maya. Maybe Juliet and I should explore getting back together. For Maya's sake. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Michelle had successfully convinced my husband that he should leave me for his ex-girlfriend. What about us, Jake? What about our marriage? I don't know, Jenny. You can't give me more children. Maya needs a stable family with both her biological parents. Maybe Michelle's right about what's best for everyone. I demanded a meeting with Michelle to confront her about her manipulation. Michelle, we need to talk, I said when I showed up at her house unannounced. She smiled that cold smile I'd come to know so well. Of course, Jenny. What's on your mind? You know exactly what's on my mind. You've been systematically trying to destroy my marriage and convince Jake to get back together with Juliet. That's ridiculous. I just want what's best for Maya. What's best for Maya is having a stable, loving home with her father and me. Not being used as a pawn in your sick game. Michelle's mask finally slipped. You're right about one thing, Maya deserves better. She deserves a real mother who can give her siblings. She deserves parents who are actually her biological family. I am her real mother in every way that matters. No, you're not. You'll never be her real mother. You can't even give Jake children of his own. Juliet gave him Maya. Juliet proved she could be a real wife and mother. You've proven nothing except that you're inadequate. You're sick, Michelle. I'm realistic. Jake belongs with Juliet. They're Maya's real parents. They should be together raising their daughter and having more children. You're just an obstacle to their real family. Just when I thought my marriage was over, something miraculous happened. 3 months after that confrontation with Michelle, I found out I was pregnant again. This time, I was terrified to tell anyone. I'd lost 2 babies already, and I couldn't bear the thought of another loss, especially with my marriage hanging by a thread. I made it through the first trimester, then the second. At 20 weeks, we found out we were having a boy. I decided to name him Jace. When I finally told Jake about the pregnancy at 16 weeks, his reaction was complicated. Are you sure? He asked. I mean, after everything. I'm sure, Jake. I'm 4 months along. He was quiet for a long moment. What does this mean for us? What do you want it to mean? I don't know. Everything's been so complicated with Michelle and Juliet and Maya. This is our baby, Jake. Our family. It doesn't have to be complicated unless you make it complicated. Slowly, Jake began to pull back from Michelle's manipulation. The reality of our growing family seemed to wake him up to what he was about to lose. When we told Maya about the baby, she was over the moon. I'm going to be a big sister, she said, hugging my belly. Mama Jenny, this is the best news ever. But when we told Michelle, her reaction was unexpected. At first, she was speechless. Then she tried to smile, but it looked forced. Well, she said carefully, I guess we'll see if this one sticks. Jake's face darkened. Michelle, that's enough. For the first time in our relationship, Jake stood up to his sister on my behalf. As my pregnancy progressed and it became clear that I was going to successfully carry this baby to term, Michelle's behavior underwent a complete transformation. Suddenly, she was all smiles and support. Jenny, honey, you're glowing. Pregnancy suits you so well. Jake, you must be so excited to have another child. I always knew you two were perfect for each other. Maya is going to be such a wonderful big sister. This baby is so lucky to have such a loving family. The same woman who had spent almost 2 years telling me I wasn't really family was now acting like she'd always supported our marriage. When people would mention her previous behavior, Michelle would laugh it off. Oh, I was just worried about Jenny because she had some losses. I wanted to make sure she was emotionally ready. But look how strong she is. I always knew she'd be a wonderful mother. She completely rewrote history, acting like her cruelty had been concern and her manipulation had been support. When Jace was born, Michelle was one of the first people at the hospital. He's perfect, she gushed, holding my newborn son. Jake, he looks just like you when you were a baby. And Jenny, you did so well. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. The same woman who had told me I wasn't meant to be a mother was now proud of me for becoming one. I always knew you had it in you, she continued. I told everyone that Jenny would be an amazing mother when the time was right. Jake looked at her with confusion. Michelle, that's not what you said before. Of course it is. I always supported Jenny. I just wanted to make sure she was ready for such a big responsibility. The gaslighting was incredible. Michelle was rewriting almost 2 years of psychological torture as loving support. With Jace's arrival, Michelle's entire attitude toward me changed overnight. Suddenly, I was a real mother. Suddenly, I was truly part of the family. Suddenly, every cruel thing she'd said about my inability to understand motherhood was forgotten. Now you understand what I was talking about, she said when I was struggling with breastfeeding. That maternal bond is so special, isn't it? Michelle, you told me I'd never be a real mother. Did I? I don't remember that. I think you might have misunderstood my concern for you. She also stopped inviting Juliet to family gatherings. Suddenly, Juliet was no longer Maya's real family that needed to be included in everything. We don't need to invite Juliet to Christmas, Michelle said casually. This is a family celebration, and Jenny and Jake have their own family now. What about Maya? Isn't Juliet still her mother? Of course, but Juliet has her own family celebrations. Maya belongs here with her real family, you, Jake, and baby Jace. The hypocrisy was staggering, but I was too exhausted from new motherhood to fight it. Jake and I didn't divorce. With Jace's birth, our marriage actually grew stronger. Having a biological child together seemed to solidify our family unit in a way that Maya alone couldn't, even though I loved her just as much. Jake continued to see Michelle's behavior for what it had been: manipulation designed to break us up. So now I look back and wonder, was Michelle ever really family? Or was she just someone who was willing to torture another woman for almost 2 years because I hadn't proven my worth through childbirth?
This is Family or Not, where we share stories that no one wants to talk about at family dinners.